Having said that, I would like to go to the next chapter, which is taken over by James, and we talk about healthcare.
Thanks, Davide. So we're going to talk a little bit about healthcare design management, and really starting kind of from the end of where we've talked so far. So assuming that we have the general idea of what the project looks like and what the scope is. And so the next step for us in healthcare is to get the design and construction team on board and do what we call a validation process. So instead of going far through design and then bidding the project later, we will bring on the design and construction team prior to going to the board for funding. And the goal there is to answer this question: can we deliver the proposed program in quality within a schedule and budget that's supported by the business case? So usually in construction, they say you have schedule, budget, and quality. You can pick any two, but you can't have all three. And this validation process is about working through the design options with the team to get to a place where we actually can have all three. And I add a fourth, which is the program piece, which from a net present value, the ability to generate income, the program for healthcare is the number of exam rooms, the number of operating rooms. They're the economic drivers of the project. So what this validation study really is trying to do, it's a collaborative documentation of the requirements. So these might be 200 pages, and they would have a full description of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural systems. They wouldn't necessarily be really far in design, though. They would be the high-level concepts, enough detail that they can be priced, but not that we've spent so much money that if the project doesn't go forward, that we have a large write-off. And we do this, we really have one main stage gate within these projects. Before we went to this type of model, we used to do a stage gate at multiple increments throughout design. So we would do a schematic design, a design development, and then a construction document stage gate. And pretty much 100% of the time, we had a massive cost increase between those design milestones, and we had to go back and do rework. So this stage gate is designed to do one single look at the job and get everybody on the same page. And then once we complete this validation study, it locks in the design and construction team. We actually have a multi-party contract where they'll put their profit at risk. And it also locks in the owner, which says this is the scope that we've agreed that we want to buy. And so we can't change that without going through a pretty rigorous change management process. So just an example of what one of those might look like. This is a medical office building. It's got 2 floors of underground parking and about 120,000 square feet of clinical space. So this team worked, we spent about 2% of the overall expected project budget to do sketches, floor plans, elevations, but not actually design how exactly we were going to build it. And we came up with a budget, and we took that forward to the board. So this is an idea of the table of contents for one of these validation reports. It'll have an introduction, which is a summary of why we want to do the project. And we'll actually share non-confidential parts of our business plan with our design and construction partners so that they understand we're not hiding something. We'll capture the program planning and design, the building systems, and then most of the conversation is around the risk assessment. So once we move forward with this project and the team puts their profit at risk, what are the main risks that could bust the budget or bust the schedule? And every one of these things gets captured on a spreadsheet and has to have an action plan and who's responsible for managing it, so that when we go into the design, the detailed design, we're actually tracking these and making sure that we're mitigating or driving these risks down. And then these all have a schedule and an expected cost model. This is what the expected cost model might look like. So from a healthcare point of view, design and construction is usually only about 60% of the project budget. So you'll have professional services outside of design, which would be special inspections, project management, radiation physicists, all kinds of different special inspections. Medical equipment, in this case, this building had a lot of cancer treatment and imaging equipment. So $9 million of that budget was really in 6 pieces of equipment. We carried a large project contingency because we had some entitlement and planning risk. So we didn't know exactly what the building was going to look like. And there was a chance that there'd be some kind of a lawsuit and the project would get stopped. Typically in this process, we carry 5% contingency or less. We have our IT, our furniture, and our permits. And the point here is this is a completely open book. The contractor and the designer's estimates are open book, and our estimate is open book. And we share this at the end of this process. The designer, the contractor, and the owner actually sign this validation report and agree to deliver that. So we talked that the validation study is completed. The actual owner, designer, and constructor will sign a single contract for a single dollar value. It's compared to our more traditional model where the owner would contract for design separately from construction and then kind of be in the middle trying to facilitate the information and the conflict going back and forth. Here it's an integrated contract. And then underneath the main builder and designer, we will bring in sub-designers and trade partners into the business deal where they'll have their profit at risk. Now, the reason I lay this out is because the team is at risk and we've really only got one stage gate. So how do you make sure that you get through design without busting your budget and losing all your profit, and also get through construction? So in the design phase, we have a concept of target value design. And what we're doing here is making the budget an input to the design process. So every design decision, everything that we talk about incorporates cost into the equation. Pretty much any concept that gets brought up, my first question will be, okay, how much does it cost? And does it affect the schedule? And so what we're not doing is budgeting the design. So you're not waiting 3 months, spending a lot of man hours in design, and then giving it to the build team and giving them a month to estimate it, and them coming back and saying, oh, by the way, we're over budget. Let's go back and take things out. So in this target value design process, we will have on the left-hand side our main funding approval at the validation level. So you're at schematic with narratives. And then we will establish target budgets for what we call clusters. So we'll group the related design and build disciplines together. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and framing almost always gets grouped together. The exterior skin, and so the glazing and whatever type of system you have will get grouped together. And then the structural system and the foundations and the mass excavation will get grouped together. And so on a weekly basis, as the design concepts are being studied, we may look at multiple structural options. They're continuously being estimated and fed back into the overall projection of final cost. And so you're identifying a risk or an opportunity, so something that can be designed differently. It gets studied, the cost gets reviewed, then there's okay, yes, that's the option we want to do, and the design advances and the budget is updated. And that's a continuous cycle throughout the design process. So this is more of a continuous stage gate in a sense, as opposed to a hard stage gate at 3 or 6 month intervals on the project. And overall, we've found that we can deliver these projects in almost all cases for the budget that was originally set during validation, even if it is 3, 4, 5, 6 years after the validation study was set. So through that process in more detail, you're moving at the validation level from schematic design, trying to get to permitted shop drawings. So you're permitting the drawings of the trade who's actually going to build it, so that you know it can be built. And from an estimating point, we're moving from a cost per square foot to vendor takeoffs, quotes, lump sum bids. And this is an example on the right for the project they showed of how we broke up the clusters, and we just took the validation estimate, divided the money up. And then at the bottom right, the team reports out every 2 weeks on the cost of their design as it's advancing. So this gets aggregated up into, this is an example of a team tracking their budget. So in this has a shared risk and reward program. So to simplify the dashboard, the red line for the team shows if the cost of the job goes above that, they start losing their profit. If the cost goes below the blue line, the team gets 80% of any savings on the project. And if it goes below the green line, it means that the team has doubled their profit, and any additional savings goes back to the owner. So in the purple is on a monthly basis, the team updates the overall cost with all of the risks and rewards that are being tracking and all of the design changes. It gets aggregated into this single graph. So from an actual coordination point of view, we found that once the team is has ownership of the design and all of the coordinating, the other thing I should say is that in this contract model, errors and omissions and traditional things that build teams would get change orders for are not change orders. They do not increase the contract value. So it becomes, everybody has a lot more buy-in to get all of the final details worked out. And so the worst thing we can hear in these meetings is, we'll figure it out later. Anytime someone says we'll figure it out later, it means that it's pretty much a complicated issue and there's no obvious answer. And that's why they want to figure it out later. So we get the team to stop, and this is a group of 7 companies sitting in the room mapping out with sticky notes all the design decisions that need to get made. And on the lower right, we're tracking these design packages at high-level milestones instead of trying to build a 5,000 line item CPM schedule that needs to be updated every week. So with these milestones, the team gets together and weekly they're adjusting the logic and just making sure that they're hitting basically the submittal dates to the agencies for each package. So with that, I'm going to conclude the overall summary of design compared for our 3 industries and do a basic introduction of next month. We'll be talking about, as you roll out of this coordinated design process into construction, how do you manage the construction and the commissioning process? So we'll do more of a deep dive on the integrated project delivery contract, as well as other contracting strategies. Talk about schedule and cost management, which goes into safety and risk management, and give an overview of how lean construction can be applied within these construction industries. So you should continue to attend to learn best practices from various industries. I think you can see I'm learning a lot through this program, that we approach things very differently, but always with the same goal in mind. And there's also lessons learned, things that I've done that haven't worked. Most of our target value design process is based on project failures in the past, and sharing some practical concepts.